The stars did not care. They never did. They just sat there, silent, cold, watching everything happen and doing nothing about it. That night, on a small human colony called Meridian, the stars watched something terrible begin. Meridian was not a famous place, it was not rich, it was not powerful. It was just a small farming colony, 3,000 people sitting quietly on the edge of human space. The people there grew golden wheat under 2 suns. Children played in the fields. Old men sat outside their homes in the evening drinking warm tea and telling old stories about Earth, a planet most of them had never seen. It was a peaceful place. A boring place, some might say. But peace, as the people of Meridian would soon learn, could end in a single moment. That evening, a young girl named Ilara was running through the wheat fields with her little brother, Toby. She was 12 years old and Toby was only 7. Their laughter echoed across the golden field as the twin suns began to set, painting the sky in orange and pink. "Catch me if you can," Ilara shouted, running faster. Toby laughed and tried to keep up, but his little legs could not match his sister's speed. He fell in the soft dirt and started laughing even harder. "You always win," he said out of breath, "and it's not fair." Ilara turned back and smiled. "Life's not fair, silly. Come on, Mom is waiting for us." As they walked home, the sky suddenly changed. A strange light appeared, far above the clouds. It was not like the sunset. It was sharp, cold, blue-white, like a knife cutting through the sky. Ilara stopped walking. She looked up. "What is that?" Toby asked, his voice small and scared. Ilara did not answer. She did not know. But something deep inside her, some old human instinct passed down for thousands of years, told her one thing: run. Far above Meridian, in the black emptiness of space, a massive fleet of alien ships appeared. They came out of nowhere, as if space itself had torn open and let them through. These ships were long, sharp, and dark purple in color, shaped like blades ready to cut. This was the Vroth Empire. The Vroth were an old species, much older than humanity. They had conquered hundreds of planets across the galaxy. Other species feared them. Other species obeyed them. The Vroth believed they were the strongest power in the galaxy, and for a very long time no one had proven them wrong. They had heard about humans before, a young species, weak, new to space travel, not even 100 years since they left their home planet Earth. The Vroth commander, a tall alien named Threxus Vor, sat in his command chair and looked at the small blue-green world on his screen. "This is it?" Threxus asked, his voice deep and full of amusement. "This weak little farming colony is what everyone talks about? The dangerous humans?" His second-in-command, a smaller alien named Kessick, checked the data. "Yes, Commander. Meridian colony. Population, 3,000. No military presence. No weapons detected, just farmers." Threxus laughed, a strange rasping sound. "Farmers. The great human empire, and this is what they leave undefended. Pathetic." "Should we contact them first, Commander? Give them a chance to surrender?" Kessick asked. Threxus's eyes narrowed. "No, we do not need permission to take what we want. This colony sits on a resource-rich system. The humans do not deserve it. They do not even know how to use it properly." He raised his hand. "Begin the attack. Show them what happens to those who stand in the way of the Vroth Empire." Back on the ground, Ilara grabbed her brother's hand and started running. "Ilara, what's happening?" Toby cried. "I don't know. Just run, Toby. Run." The sky above them lit up with fire. Bright red streaks fell from the heavens like burning rain. The ground shook. Somewhere behind them, a house exploded into flames. People screamed. Alarms began to sound across the colony, but it was too late. The attack had already begun. Ilara's mother, Sarah, came running out of their house, her face white with fear. "Ilara, Toby, come here now." They ran to her and she pulled them both into her arms for just a second, holding them close. "We need to get to the shelter," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "Now follow me." They ran through the chaos. Buildings burned around them. People ran in every direction, screaming, crying, calling out names of loved ones. Ilara saw a family running past her. a father carrying two small children, one under each arm. She saw an old man sitting on the ground, too weak to run, calling for help that never came. The sky was full of alien ships now, dark shapes blocking out the stars, raining down fire on the helpless colony below. They reached the underground shelter just as another explosion hit nearby, throwing dirt and debris into the air. Sarah pushed her children inside and turned back. "Mom, where are you going?" Alara shouted. "I need to help others get inside. Stay here, I'll be right back." "Mom, no." But Sarah was already running back into the burning colony, pulling more people toward the shelter. Alara watched her mother disappear into the smoke and fire, and for the first time in her life she felt truly, completely afraid. The attack lasted only 20 minutes. 20 minutes was all it took for the Vroth ships to destroy most of Meridian Colony. The wheat fields burned, homes were reduced to ash. The peaceful little town that had existed quietly for 30 years was gone in less time than it took to eat a meal. When the ships finally stopped firing, silence fell over the smoking ruins, a silence more terrible than any sound. Inside the shelter, Alara held her brother tightly, both of them covered in dust, tears streaking down their dirty faces. Around them, survivors sat in shock, staring at nothing, unable to process what had just happened. Sarah did not come back. Alara waited. She told herself her mother would walk through that door any moment, dirty but alive, with that same brave smile she always had. She waited for hours, but her mother never came. Far above, Threxus 4 looked down at the smoking colony with satisfaction. "Send a scouting team down. Take whatever resources remain. Leave no survivors that could cause trouble." Keswick hesitated. "Commander, there may still be civilians alive down there." "Then make sure there aren't," Threxus said coldly. "This is how empires are built, Keswick. Through strength, through fear. The humans will learn their place, just like every other species we have conquered." What Threxus did not know, what none of the Vroth knew, was that they had just made the single greatest mistake in their empire's long history. Deep in human space, thousands of light years away, on a massive space station called Fort Solace, an alert began to flash on every screen in the command center. Admiral James Reyes was in the middle of a quiet evening, reading reports in his office when the alarm sounded. He walked quickly to the command center, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "What do we have?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. A young officer, Lieutenant Chen, looked up from her console, her face pale. "Sir, we just received an emergency signal from Meridian Colony. It's bad, sir." "Play it." The screen flickered to life. The message was short, broken up by static, recorded by someone hiding in fear. A woman's voice, breathless and desperate. "This is Meridian Colony. We are under attack. Unknown alien fleet. They are not stopping. Please, someone, help us. They are killing everyone." The message cut off. Static filled the silence. The entire command center went quiet. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Every eye turned to Admiral Reyes. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the black screen where the message had ended. His jaw tightened. His hands, resting at his sides, slowly closed into fists. "Sir?" Lieutenant Chen said quietly. "Orders?" Admiral Reyes did not answer right away. He was thinking about something that happened 100 years ago, back when humanity first entered the wider galaxy. Back when the great nations of Earth had finally united, after centuries of war among themselves to form a single human government. They had made one promise to each other that day, a promise that every human child was taught from a young age. Never again will we let harm come to our people without answer. Never again will we stand silent while innocents suffer. We fought each other for too long. Now we stand together, or we do not stand at all. It was called the Meridian Accord. Ironic, Reyes thought, that the very colony that had just been attacked shared its name with humanity's most sacred promise. "Sir," Chen said again, more urgently this time. "What are your orders?" Admiral Reyes finally turned to face the room. His eyes were cold, but not with anger. with something deeper, something that had been sleeping inside humanity for 100 years, waiting. "Contact Fleet Command," he said. "Tell them Meridian has fallen. Tell them we have identified the aggressor as the Vroth Empire." "Yes, sir. And what should I tell them regarding our response?" Admiral Reyes looked back at the black screen, at the last words of a woman who had likely not survived the attack. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that the Meridian Accord has been triggered. Tell them we are done being patient." The room fell silent again, but this silence was different. It was the silence before a storm. The silence of a species that had spent 100 years building itself quietly, preparing itself carefully, hoping it would never need to show its true strength. That hope had just ended. 3 days later, in a quiet room deep within Fort Solace, Admiral Reyes stood before a wall of monitors showing reports from across human space. Ships were moving. Fleets were gathering. Something massive was being set into motion, something that had not happened in nearly 50 years. A young officer approached him carefully. "Sir, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "The Vroth Empire is enormous, sir. They have conquered dozens of species stronger than us on paper. Why do we think we can win this?" Admiral Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to the young officer, and his expression was calm, almost sad. "Because they don't understand something about us," he said. "They see farmers and think weakness. They see quiet colonies and think there is nothing behind them. They do not know that every human, every single one, carries something inside them that most species in this galaxy have never truly felt." "What's that, sir?" Admiral Reyes looked back at the monitors, at the ships gathering in the darkness preparing to move. "Grief," he said quietly. "And when humans grieve, we do not cry quietly in the corner. We build, we plan, we remember every name, every face, every single person we lost. And then, we make sure it never happens again." He paused, his eyes hard as steel. "The Vroth crossed a line today. They killed innocent people who never raised a weapon against them. They thought it would end there. They thought silence meant weakness." He turned fully toward the young officer now, his voice low and steady. "They are about to learn that with humans, silence is never surrender. It is preparation." Far away in the ruins of Meridian Colony, a 12-year-old girl named Alara sat wrapped in a blanket, watching soldiers from a rescue ship carry the wounded to safety. Her brother slept beside her, exhausted from crying. Her mother's name had just been added to a long list. A list of the missing. A list that would soon become a list of reasons. Alara did not know it yet, but her mother's name, along with hundreds of others from Meridian Colony, would soon be carried across the stars by a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A fleet built not from anger alone, but from something far more dangerous. Determination. Somewhere far across the galaxy, Threxus Vor sat in his command chair, reviewing reports of a successful and profitable attack, completely unaware that he had just awakened the very thing every species in the galaxy secretly feared, but had never truly seen. He had crossed humanity's red line, and what would follow next would be nothing short of pure retribution. 6 months had passed since the attack on Meridian Colony. For the survivors, those 6 months felt like 6 lifetimes. Alara was no longer the laughing girl who used to run through golden wheat fields. She was 13 now, quieter, older in the eyes than her age should allow. She and Toby had been moved to a refugee station near Earth's outer colonies, along with 200 other survivors from Meridian. Every night, Alara would sit by the window of their small room and look up at the stars. She was not looking at them the way she used to, with wonder and curiosity. Now she looked at them with a question that never left her mind. Where is the fleet? When will someone answer for what happened to my mother? She did not know that far away, in the darkest and most secret parts of human space, her question was already being answered. Deep beneath the surface of a distant moon called Vantage, hidden from every sensor and every eye in the galaxy, humanity had been building something for nearly 50 years. Something the Vroth Empire and every other alien power did not know existed. It was called Fleet Ember. Admiral James Reyes walked through the massive underground hangar, his footsteps echoing against metal walls that stretched for miles in every direction. Around him, thousands of workers moved like ants, finishing the final preparations on ships that gleamed under bright white lights. These were not ordinary ships. They were sleek, dark, and built with technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen from humans before. For 50 years, ever since the Meridian Accord was signed, humanity had quietly prepared for a day like this. They had watched other species get conquered by empires like the Vroth. They had studied alien weapons, alien tactics, alien weaknesses. They had built ships in secret, trained soldiers in secret, and waited. They waited because they knew a truth that many species forget. Patience is not weakness. Patience can be the sharpest weapon of all. "Admiral," said a voice behind him. It was General Marcus Hale, the commander of Fleet Ember's ground forces. He was a tall, serious man with gray hair and a scar across his left eyebrow from an old training accident. "The fleet is ready. Every ship has passed final inspection. Every soldier has completed training." Admiral Reyes nodded slowly, still looking at the ships before him. 50 years, Marcus. 50 years we waited for a reason to use this. And now we have one, Marcus said quietly. Reyes turned to face him. 3,000 innocent people, farmers, children. A whole colony gone in 20 minutes, and the Vroth did not even think it was worth mentioning in their reports. That's what our intelligence officers found. They didn't even bother recording it as a significant event. Marcus's jaw tightened. Then let's make sure they remember this one. At the same time, far across the galaxy, in the heart of Vroth territory, Commander Threxus Vor was being celebrated as a hero. He stood in a grand hall filled with hundreds of Vroth officers, all raising their glasses in his honor. The Vroth Emperor himself, an ancient and powerful being named Zorvath, sat on a high throne, watching the celebration with cold, calculating eyes. "Commander Threxus," Emperor Zorvath said, his voice booming across the hall, "you have brought us another resource-rich system with minimal losses. The human colony provided excellent mining opportunities, did it not?" "Yes, my Emperor," Threxus said proudly, bowing his head. "The humans offered no real resistance. Their so-called military strength was nothing but rumors and stories. We took what we wanted within minutes." The hall erupted in laughter and cheers. Zorvath raised his hand and the room fell silent. "Good," the Emperor said. "The humans have been a curiosity to us for years. Some of our scholars warned they might become dangerous one day, that we should be cautious. It seems they were wrong." Threxus smiled. "With respect, my Emperor, I believe those scholars were simply afraid of the unknown. Humans are young, weak. They talk about honor and treaties, but when faced with true power, they do nothing but hide and cry." What none of them knew was that, at that very moment, 12 massive ships from Fleet Ember had just left the underground base Advantage, beginning their long journey toward Vroth space. The journey would take 3 weeks. During that time, Admiral Reyes spent hours preparing his soldiers, not just with weapons training, but with something more important: purpose. He stood before 3,000 soldiers gathered in the main hangar of his flagship, the Meridian's Answer. The name of the ship itself was a message, a promise carved into steel. "Many of you have asked me why we waited so long," Reyes said, his voice carrying clearly through the massive room. "Why did humanity build this fleet in secret for 50 years instead of announcing our strength to the galaxy?" The soldiers listened in complete silence. The answer is simple. We are not like the Vroth. We do not seek to conquer. We do not seek to rule over others. We built Fleet Ember for one reason only: to protect what is ours, and to answer, without mercy, anyone foolish enough to test that protection. He paused, looking across the sea of faces before him. 3,000 people died on Meridian Colony. Farmers, teachers, children, people who never held a weapon in their lives. The Vroth Empire believed we were too weak to answer. They believed our silence meant we would simply accept this loss and move on. His voice grew harder. They were wrong. The soldiers erupted into a powerful cheer, but Reyes raised his hand and they quieted immediately. "This is not about revenge," he said firmly. "This is about justice. We will not attack innocent Vroth civilians. We will not become the very monsters we are going to fight. But every military force, every commander, every soldier who took part in the attack on Meridian Colony will answer for what they did." He looked directly into the cameras, broadcasting his speech to every ship in the fleet. "Today we remind the galaxy of something they forgot. Humanity does not start wars, but we finish them." Back on the refugee station, Ilara sat with Toby, watching an old news broadcast on a small screen. The report was talking about strange rumors, unconfirmed sightings of massive unidentified ships moving through deep space, heading in the direction of Vroth territory. "Do you think it's true?" Toby asked, his eyes wide. "Do you think Earth is finally doing something?" Ilara did not answer right away. She had learned over the past 6 months not to hope for things too quickly. Hope could hurt just as much as despair when it was taken away. But something about this rumor felt different. Something felt real. "I don't know," she finally said. "But if it's true, I hope they make them pay for what they did to Mom." 3 weeks later, Fleet Ember arrived at the edge of Vroth territory. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Meridian's answer, looking at the tactical display showing the massive Vroth home fleet stationed near their capital world. Hundreds of Vroth warships, more than Fleet Ember's 12 vessels combined many times over. Lieutenant Chen, now serving as Reyes's chief tactical officer, looked worried. "Sir, their numbers are overwhelming. Should we call for reinforcements?" Admiral Reyes shook his head calmly. "No, Lieutenant. This is exactly what we planned for. Numbers mean nothing if the enemy does not understand what they are truly facing. Begin the approach. Standard formation." As Fleet Ember's 12 ships moved closer to Vroth space, alarms began sounding across the Vroth fleet. Sensor operators stared in confusion at their screens, unable to properly identify the incoming vessels. Aboard the Vroth flagship, Commander Threxus Vor, who had been reassigned to lead home fleet defenses after his celebrated victory at Meridian, looked at the reports with a confused expression. 12 ships?" he said, almost laughing. "Only 12? Are the humans truly this foolish?" Keswick, still serving as his second-in-command, studied the data more carefully, and his expression slowly changed from confusion to concern. "Commander, these ships are not registering properly on our scanners. Their size, their power readings. Something is wrong with our systems, or something is very wrong with these ships." Threxus waved off his concerns. "Do not worry yourself, Keswick. 12 ships against our home fleet of 300. This will not even qualify as a real battle. Prepare to intercept and destroy them. Let us show the humans what happens to those who trespass into Vroth space." As the Vroth fleet moved to intercept, Admiral Reyes remained calm on the bridge of his flagship. "Sir, they're moving to surround us," Chen reported. 300 ships forming an interception pattern. "Let them," Reyes said quietly. "Bring shields to full power. Prepare the Meridian Protocol." Every soldier on the bridge straightened at those words. The Meridian Protocol was something they had trained for endlessly during the journey, but had never actually used in real combat. "Sir, are you certain?" Chen asked. "Once we activate it, there's no going back." Admiral Reyes looked at the tactical display, at the swarm of Vroth ships closing in, ready to destroy what they believed was a small, foolish human fleet. He thought of Ilara, a girl he had never met but whose recorded testimony he had watched a dozen times. He thought of the list of names from Meridian Colony, a list he now knew by heart. He thought of 100 years of patience, 50 years of secret preparation, all leading to this single moment. "There was never any going back," he said quietly. "Not since the day they attacked Meridian. Activate the protocol." Across the bridge, officers began entering commands. Deep within each of the 12 ships, systems that had never been used in actual combat began to power up. Systems built using 50 years of research, technology far beyond what any Vroth scanner could properly identify. The 12 ships of Fleet Ember began to change formation, moving with a speed and precision that made the Vroth sensor operators gasp in shock. "Commander," Keswick shouted, his voice filled with alarm. "Their movement patterns— This is not possible. No ship should be able to move like that." Threxus frowned, staring at the display as the human ships began forming a perfect defensive pattern around a central point, something none of his tactical training had ever prepared him to face. "Bring all weapons to bear," he ordered, his confidence slightly shaken but not broken. "Destroy them before they can activate whatever strange technology they are attempting." But it was already too late. The Vroth fleet opened fire first, unleashing a massive wave of energy weapons toward the 12 human ships. Hundreds of bright blue beams cut through space, more than enough firepower to destroy a fleet 10 times the size of Fleet Ember. For one terrible moment, it looked like the human fleet would simply be erased from existence. Then, something happened that would be remembered in Vroth history for generations to come. A massive shield, unlike anything the galaxy had ever recorded, sprang to life around the 12 human ships. The Vroth weapons struck the shield and simply disappeared, absorbed completely, as if the attack had never happened at all. Silence fell across the Vroth fleet's command channels. That's not possible," Keswick whispered, staring at his screen in disbelief. "Commander, their shield just absorbed our entire opening barrage. There's no damage. None at all." Threxus stared at his own screen, his confident smile finally beginning to fade. "Impossible. No technology should be capable of that. Fire again, all weapons, continuous barrage." The Vroth fleet unleashed everything they had, wave after wave of devastating firepower, enough energy to destroy several planets. And still, the 12 human ships remained untouched, their shield holding steady against everything thrown at it. Aboard the Meridian's Answer, Admiral Reyes watched the tactical display calmly, showing not a single point of damage across his entire fleet. "Shield integrity holding at 100%, sir," Chen reported, her voice filled with quiet amazement despite months of knowing this technology would work. Admiral Reyes nodded slowly. "Good. Now, let them see what 50 years of patience truly built." He turned to his weapons officer. "Return fire. Target their command ships first. Precision strikes only. We are not here to slaughter. We are here to answer." What happened next would later be called, throughout human history, the Battle of Unmasking. It was the moment the entire galaxy learned that humanity was no longer the weak, primitive species everyone assumed them to be. 12 human ships, protected by shields no one thought possible, began systematically dismantling the pride of the Vroth Empire's home fleet defense. Not through brute force or overwhelming numbers, but through precision, discipline, and technology that had been kept hidden for half a century. Aboard his flagship, Threxus Vor watched in growing horror as ship after ship in his fleet went dark, disabled with surgical precision, rather than destroyed outright. The humans were not simply attacking, they were making a point. "Commander," Keswick said, his voice shaking, "we are losing. We are losing badly." Threxus stared at the display, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing. The weak, primitive humans he had mocked just months earlier were now dismantling his entire fleet as if it were nothing more than a training exercise. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" On the bridge of the Meridian's Answer, Admiral Reyes watched as more Vroth ships fell silent across his tactical display, disabled but not destroyed, exactly as planned. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen said, "we have opened a communication channel from the Vroth flagship. Commander Threxus Vor is requesting to speak with our fleet commander." Admiral Reyes straightened his uniform and nodded. "Put him through." It's time he learned exactly who he is speaking to. The screen flickered to life, showing Threxus Vor's face, no longer confident, no longer amused. His expression now held something the Vroth rarely felt. Fear. You cannot be human," Threxus said, his voice trembling slightly. "This technology, this power, it is not possible for your species to possess such strength." Admiral Reyes looked at him with cold, steady eyes. 6 months ago," Reyes said quietly, "you attacked a defenseless colony called Meridian. You killed 3,000 innocent people who never held a weapon against you. Farmers, children, Mothers. Threxus's face paled slightly at the mention of Meridian. You believed our silence meant weakness, Reyes continued. You believed our patience meant fear. You were wrong, Commander Threxus Vor. Very, very wrong. What do you want? Threxus asked, his voice barely above a whisper now. Admiral Reyes leaned forward slightly, his voice carrying the weight of 100 years of human history, of a promise made long ago and finally being fulfilled. We want you to understand something, Commander. This, he gestured to the disabled fleet surrounding them, was mercy. This was us holding back. What comes next if you do not surrender immediately and answer for your crimes will not be mercy at all. The communication screen showed Threxus Vor's face, and for the first time in his long military career, the great Vroth commander felt something he had never experienced before: true fear. Behind him, alarms continued sounding across his shattered fleet, and somewhere far above the Vroth capital world, more human ships began appearing on long-range sensors, the true size of Fleet Ember finally beginning to reveal itself. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Humanity's red line had been crossed, and retribution had only just begun. Commander Threxus Vor stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the communication screen where Admiral Reyes's calm, cold face had just delivered a warning unlike any he had ever received in his long military career. Around him, his crew worked frantically, trying to restore systems, trying to understand how 12 human ships had just dismantled a fleet of 300 without breaking a sweat. But Threxus barely heard them. His mind was still replaying Reyes's words. This was mercy. Mercy, the great Vroth Empire, conquerors of dozens of worlds, had just been shown mercy by a species they considered primitive farmers. Commander, Keswick said carefully, approaching him with a data pad shaking slightly in his hands. Long-range sensors are picking up something. More ships. Many more ships. Threxus turned slowly. How many? Keswick swallowed hard. Our sensors are having trouble getting an exact count, sir, but it appears to be hundreds, possibly more than 1,000 vessels holding position just outside our detection range until now. The color drained from Threxus's face. 1,000 ships? That's not possible. Our intelligence reports showed nothing. No indication of a fleet this size. They were hidden, Commander, Keswick said quietly. All this time, they were hidden. Word of the disaster spread quickly through Vroth space, reaching the Emperor's palace within hours. Emperor Zorvath, who just days earlier had celebrated Threxus Vor as a hero, now sat on his throne in stunned silence as reports of the destroyed home fleet defense continued pouring in. Explain this to me again, Zorvath said, his voice dangerously quiet. You are telling me that 12 human ships defeated 300 of our finest warships without suffering a single casualty? The advisor standing before him, an older Vroth named Salduk, nodded nervously. Yes, my Emperor. Their shield technology is unlike anything we have ever encountered. Our weapons simply could not penetrate it. And now there is a fleet of over 1,000 human ships sitting at the edge of our territory? Yes, my Emperor. Zorvath's claws dug into the arms of his throne. For centuries, the Vroth Empire had been the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. They had conquered species far more advanced than humans appeared to be. And now, everything they believed about their own strength was being questioned. Send envoys, Zorvath finally said. We will negotiate. Offer them resources, territory, anything reasonable to end this conflict quickly. Salduk hesitated. My Emperor, the humans have not requested negotiation. Their message was clear. They want Commander Threxus Vor and every officer involved in the Meridian attack to answer for war crimes. Zorvath's eyes narrowed. They want us to hand over our own officers like criminals? That is their demand, my Emperor. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, thinking. Finally he spoke, his voice cold and calculating. Absolutely not. The Vroth Empire does not hand over its officers to lesser species, no matter what technology they possess. Prepare our full military might. If they want a war, we will show them the true power of the Vroth Empire. Saldik bowed, though his expression showed clear doubt about the wisdom of this decision. Back at the edge of Vroth territory, Admiral Rhea stood on the bridge of the Meridian's answer, watching as the true size of Fleet Ember became visible on long-range sensors. What Keswick had reported as possibly 1,000 ships was actually far more. 2,300 vessels, built in secret over 50 years, waiting patiently for a moment like this. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen said, "we've received a response from the Vroth Emperor. He has refused our demand to hand over the officers responsible for Meridian." Reyes was not surprised. "And instead, they are mobilizing their full military, sir. Every fleet across their empire has been called back to defend the homeworld." Admiral Reyes nodded slowly, having expected exactly this response. Empires built on fear and conquest rarely admitted weakness easily. They would rather fight than lose face in front of a species they still considered beneath them. "General Hale," Reyes said, turning to Marcus Hale, who stood beside him on the bridge. "Status of our ground forces?" "Ready, sir. All units standing by for deployment once space superiority is established." Reyes looked out at the vast darkness of space, at the countless human ships now visible, silent and patient, waiting for his order. "Then let's finish what they started," he said quietly. "Fleet-wide communication, all ships. Prepare for full advance into Vroth territory." News of the growing conflict reached the refugee station, where Ilara and Toby lived faster than official reports could confirm details. Rumors spread through the station like wildfire. Some said humanity had discovered a secret weapon. Others said an entire alien empire was preparing to counterattack Earth itself. Ilara found herself glued to every news broadcast, desperate for real information. On the 5th day since the rumors began, an official announcement finally came through, broadcast to every human colony and station across known space. Admiral Reyes's face appeared on screens everywhere, calm and serious. "People of Earth and her colonies," he began. "6 months ago, the Vroth Empire attacked Meridian Colony without warning, killing 3,000 innocent civilians. Today, I want you to know that action is being taken. Fleet Ember, a defense force 50 years in preparation, has engaged Vroth military forces at the edge of their territory." Ilara felt her breath catch as she listened. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek revenge against innocent Vroth civilians. We seek only justice for those who were murdered, and a guarantee that no human colony will ever face such an attack again without answer." The broadcast continued, showing brief clips of Fleet Ember's ships, their strange shields glowing with protective energy, standing firm against Vroth attacks. Toby, now 8 years old, looked up at his sister with wide eyes. "Ilara, do you think they'll find the people who did this to Mom?" Ilara reached over and held her brother's hand tightly. "I think," she said slowly, "that somewhere out there, someone is making sure Mom's death was not forgotten, and that's all I can ask for right now." The Vroth Empire's full military force finally arrived to defend their homeworld 3 days later. It was a staggering sight, thousands of warships gathering in defensive formation around the Vroth capital, representing the combined might of an empire that had never known true defeat. Aboard his flagship, Emperor Zorvath watched the formation with grim satisfaction. "Let the humans see what a true empire looks like," he said. "Let them understand the foolishness of their aggression." Commander Threxus Vor, given one final chance to redeem himself after the disaster at the home fleet defense, stood nearby, his confidence slowly returning as he looked at the overwhelming numbers now gathered to defend Vroth space. "My Emperor," he said, "with this force, even their strange shields cannot save them. We outnumber them by more than 3 to 1, Zorvath nodded. "Then let us end this quickly. Order the attack." As the massive Vroth fleet began moving toward Fleet Ember's position, Admiral Reyes watched calmly from his command chair, showing no sign of concern despite the overwhelming numbers approaching. "Sir," Chen said, "their fleet is nearly 3 times our size. Should we consider a defensive strategy?" "No," Reyes said simply. "We proceed exactly as planned. Numbers have never determined victory in war, Lieutenant. Understanding has, and the Vroth still do not understand what they are truly facing. The Battle of Vroth Prime, as it would later be called, began with the largest space engagement the galaxy had witnessed in over a century. Thousands of ships clashed in the darkness of space, weapons fire lighting up the void like a terrible fireworks display. From a distance it appeared as chaos, an overwhelming storm of destruction with no clear pattern or purpose. But aboard the Meridian's Answer, Admiral Reyes watched a carefully orchestrated dance unfold, exactly as 50 years of planning had designed it to. Fleet Ember's ships moved with impossible precision, their advanced shields absorbing the worst of the Vroth attacks, while their own weapons targeted specific systems with surgical accuracy. They were not simply fighting to destroy. They were fighting to disable, to demonstrate, to send an unmistakable message. "Commander," Keswick shouted over the chaos on Threxus Vor's ship, "our weapons are having minimal effect. Their shields are holding even against our combined fleet's firepower." Threxus stared at the tactical display in growing horror, as ship after ship in his own fleet began falling silent, disabled by precise human strikes that seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum effect with minimum destruction. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No fleet should be able to withstand this much combined firepower." But it was happening. Hour after hour the battle continued, and slowly, steadily the tide turned completely in humanity's favor. Vroth ships that had once seemed unstoppable were being systematically disabled, their crews forced to evacuate as human boarding parties, protected by advanced personal shields, took control of vessel after vessel. Deep within the battle, Admiral Reyes received an urgent report from General Hale. "Sir, we've successfully boarded and captured 17 more Vroth vessels. Their crews are being processed and held according to protocol." "Casualties?" Reyes asked. "Minimal on our side, sir. On the Vroth side, they are finally beginning to surrender rather than fight to destruction. I believe they are starting to understand this battle cannot be won." Admiral Reyes nodded, watching the tactical display show more and more Vroth ships going dark, their weapons disabled, their crews surrendering rather than facing complete destruction. "Good," he said quietly. "We are not here to slaughter an entire species for the crimes of a few. We are here to show them that crimes against innocence will always have consequences." 6 hours into the battle, Emperor Zorvath sat in stunned disbelief as reports continued flooding in. Over half of his massive fleet had been disabled or captured. The humans, despite being outnumbered 3-1, had suffered almost no losses in return. "This cannot be happening," Zorvath muttered, staring at the tactical display showing the true scope of the disaster unfolding. 50 years, Salduk. You told me their reports showed nothing unusual for 50 years. Salduk, standing nearby with a grim expression, nodded slowly. "It appears, my Emperor, that the humans were far more patient and far more capable than any of our intelligence reports suggested. They allowed us to underestimate them completely." "Contact the human commander," Zorvath said finally, his pride finally breaking under the weight of undeniable defeat. Tell him we wish to discuss terms." When Admiral Reyes received the surrender request, he felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Only a quiet sense that justice, long delayed, was finally within reach. "Put the Emperor through," he said. The screen flickered to life, showing Emperor Zorvath's proud face now marked with the unmistakable look of defeat. "Admiral Reyes," Zorvath said stiffly, "the Vroth Empire wishes to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "There is only one term that matters, Emperor Zorvath," Reyes replied calmly. "Commander Threxus Vor and every officer who participated in the attack on Meridian Colony will be handed over to human authorities to answer for their crimes. Additionally, the Vroth Empire will provide full compensation to the survivors of Meridian Colony and will sign a treaty acknowledging the sovereignty and protection rights of all human territories." Zorvath's jaw tightened, old pride fighting against new reality. "And if we refuse these terms?" Admiral Reyes's expression did not change, but his voice carried absolute certainty. "Then this battle continues until the Vroth Empire no longer possesses the military strength to threaten anyone." ever again. The choice is yours, Emperor. But know this. We did not seek this war. You brought it to our doorstep when you murdered innocent people who never harmed you. Every consequence you face now was earned by your own actions. The communication fell silent for a long moment as Emperor Zorvath considered his rapidly diminishing options. His fleet was shattered. His pride was broken. And for the first time in Vroth history, an empire that had never known true defeat was facing the very real possibility of complete destruction if it continued to resist. Zorvath began, his voice heavy with the weight of an impossible decision. I need time to consider these terms. You have 1 hour, Admiral Reyes replied firmly. After that, we resume the engagement until victory is complete. The screen went dark, and silence fell across the bridge of the Meridian's answer. General Hale approached Reyes quietly. Do you think he'll accept the terms, sir? Admiral Reyes looked out at the vast battlefield before them, at thousands of ships, human and Vroth, scattered across the darkness of space, a testament to the true cost of arrogance and underestimation. He will, Reyes said quietly. Pride can survive many things, Marcus, but it cannot survive complete annihilation. Zorvath will choose to save what remains of his empire, even if it means sacrificing his pride. As the minutes ticked by, every soldier aboard Fleet Ember's ships waited in tense silence, wondering if the long battle was finally about to end, or if it would need to continue toward its terrible final conclusion. Far away on the refugee station, Ilara sat awake through the night watching every news update, waiting to learn if justice for her mother and for everyone lost at Meridian was finally about to be delivered. She did not know that in less than 1 hour, the fate of an entire alien empire would be decided, and she did not know that the final outcome would change the balance of power across the galaxy forever. The hour passed slowly, each minute stretching into what felt like an eternity aboard the Meridian's answer. Admiral Reyes sat quietly in his command chair, watching the tactical display where thousands of ships, human and Vroth alike, hung suspended in the darkness of space, waiting. Lieutenant Chen broke the silence. Sir, 58 minutes have passed. I know, Lieutenant, Reyes replied calmly. General Hale stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the countdown with obvious tension. And if he doesn't respond in time? Then we will have our answer, Reyes said simply. At the 59-minute mark, the communication system chimed. Every officer on the bridge straightened. Admiral Reyes nodded to Chen, who quickly opened the channel. Emperor Zorvath's face appeared on the screen once more, but something had changed in his expression. The proud, defiant ruler who had spoken to Reyes an hour earlier was gone. In his place sat a leader who understood, finally and completely, the true cost of arrogance. Admiral Reyes, Zorvath said, his voice heavy but steady. The Vroth Empire accepts your terms. A quiet wave of relief passed through the bridge, though no one celebrated openly. This was not a moment for celebration. It was a moment for justice. Commander Threxus Vor and all officers involved in the attack on Meridian Colony will be transferred to your custody immediately, Zorvath continued. We will also begin preparations for the compensation and treaty you have demanded. Admiral Reyes nodded slowly. Thank you, Emperor Zorvath. This is the right decision for both our peoples. Zorvath's eyes narrowed slightly, old pride still flickering beneath the surface. Do not mistake this for weakness, Admiral. The Vroth Empire agrees to these terms because it is the wise choice, not because we fear you. Admiral Reyes's expression remained calm, but his words carried quiet weight. Emperor, wisdom and fear are not always so different. Sometimes the wisest choice is the one that comes from finally understanding the true consequences of our actions. I hope, for the sake of your empire and every species you have conquered, that this is a lesson the Vroth choose to remember. The transfer of Commander Threxus Vor took place 3 hours later, aboard a neutral vessel positioned between the two fleets. Threxus walked slowly across the transfer platform, stripped of his rank insignia, his once proud posture now bent under the weight of defeat and disgrace. Behind him followed 7 other officers, all of whom had played a role in the attack on Meridian Colony. Admiral Reyes stood waiting on the human side of the platform, flanked by General Hale and a small security detail. As Threxus approached, he finally looked up, meeting Reyes's eyes for the first time since their communication days earlier. "You could have destroyed us completely," Threxus said quietly, almost confused by the outcome. "You had the power. Why did you stop?" Admiral Reyes studied the alien commander for a long moment before answering. "Because we are not like you, Commander. You attacked innocent people because you believed your strength gave you the right to take whatever you wanted. We do not believe strength gives anyone that right." He gestured for the security team to take custody of the prisoners. "You will face trial for your crimes. Every person you killed at Meridian Colony will have their story told. Every family who lost someone that day will finally see justice, not revenge, but justice." Threxus lowered his head as human soldiers moved to escort him away. Just before he was led from the platform, he spoke one final time. "For what it's worth, Admiral, I was wrong about your species. Completely wrong." Admiral Reyes said nothing in response. Some apologies came too late to mean anything. This was one of them. News of the Vroth Empire's surrender spread across human space within hours, reaching every colony, every station, every corner where humans had built their lives among the stars. At the refugee station, Ilara was asleep when Toby burst into her room, shaking her awake with wide, excited eyes. "Ilara! Ilara, wake up! It's on every screen! They won! They actually won!" Ilara sat up quickly, rubbing sleep from her eyes as Toby pulled her toward the common room where dozens of other refugees had already gathered around the largest screen on the station. The broadcast showed Admiral Reyes standing before cameras, his expression serious but calm as he addressed not just human space, but the message was being translated and sent across galactic communication networks, meant for every species watching. "6 months ago," Reyes said, "the Vroth Empire attacked Meridian Colony, believing humanity to be weak, unprepared, and unwilling to answer for such an atrocity. Today, I stand before you to confirm that Commander Threxus Vor and his officers have been taken into custody. They will face trial for war crimes committed against innocent civilians." The room erupted in quiet murmurs, tears and disbelief among the survivors watching. Many of them had lost loved ones that terrible night on Meridian. For 6 months, they had wondered if anyone would truly answer for what happened. "The Vroth Empire has also agreed to provide full compensation to every survivor and family affected by this attack," Reyes continued, "as well as sign a treaty recognizing human sovereignty and committing to non-aggression toward human territories." Ilara felt tears streaming down her face as she listened, gripping her brother's hand tightly. "This victory," Reyes said, his voice growing quieter but no less powerful, "does not belong to me or to Fleet Ember or even to the soldiers who fought bravely in this conflict. This victory belongs to every person who lost someone on Meridian Colony. It belongs to the memory of every innocent life taken that day." He paused, and for a brief moment his composed expression softened with genuine emotion. "To the survivors watching this broadcast, I want you to know that your loss was never forgotten, and it never will be. Today, we honor them not with vengeance, but with justice finally delivered." 3 weeks later, Ilara and Toby stood among a crowd of Meridian survivors gathered at a memorial ceremony on Earth, in the very capital where the Meridian Accord had been signed 100 years earlier. Admiral Reyes stood before them, along with other officials, as a new memorial wall was unveiled, containing the names of every person lost during the attack on Meridian Colony. Ilara's mother's name, Sarah, was engraved among them, a permanent reminder that her sacrifice would never be forgotten. As the ceremony continued, Admiral Reyes approached Ilara personally, having requested to speak with the survivors individually after the formal proceedings ended. "You're Ilara," he said gently. "I watched your recorded testimony many times during our preparation for this mission. Your words helped remind every soldier in Fleet Ember exactly why we were fighting." Ilara looked up at him, surprised. "My testimony? I didn't know anyone was listening." "Everyone was listening," Reyes said quietly. "Your story, and the stories of every survivor, became the reason 50 years of patience finally had a purpose. You didn't just survive that night, Ilara. You helped ensure it would never happen again to anyone else." Elara wiped tears from her eyes, looking toward the memorial wall where her mother's name was engraved in permanent silver letters. "Do you think she would be proud? Of what happened? Of the justice we got?" Admiral Reyes followed her gaze toward the wall, his own expression thoughtful. "I think," he said slowly, "that every mother who protects her children, even in her final moments, would be proud to know their sacrifice led to protection for countless others. Your mother ran back into danger to save her neighbors, Elara. That kind of courage doesn't disappear. It becomes part of something larger." In the months that followed, the trial of Commander Threxus Vor and his officers became one of the most watched events in galactic history. Representatives from dozens of species, many of whom had suffered under Vroth conquest themselves, watched as humanity demonstrated something the galaxy had rarely seen. Justice delivered with both strength and restraint. Threxus Vor was ultimately found guilty of war crimes against civilian populations and sentenced to lifetime imprisonment, a fate he accepted with quiet resignation, understanding finally the true weight of the choices he had made that fateful night at Meridian Colony. The treaty signed between humanity and the Vroth Empire marked a turning point, not just for human-Vroth relations, but for humanity's standing across the entire galaxy. Other species, who had previously viewed humans as primitive and inconsequential, began approaching Earth's government with newfound respect and, in some cases, requests for alliance and protection. Admiral Reyes, now recognized as one of the most significant military leaders in human history, insisted that the true lesson of Meridian Colony should never be forgotten, regardless of humanity's growing strength and influence across the stars. "We did not become powerful to conquer others," he said in a speech delivered before the United Earth Council, months after the conflict ended. "We became powerful because we refused to let innocent lives be taken without consequence. Let this be humanity's promise to the galaxy, now and always. We will not seek war, but we will never again stand silent while those we are sworn to protect suffer harm." 2 years passed since the Battle of Vroth Prime. Elara, now 15 years old, stood once again in a wheat field, though not on Meridian Colony, which had been rebuilt as a protected memorial site rather than resettled. This new colony, named New Meridian, had been established nearby, built by survivors determined to honor their lost home while creating something new. Toby, now 10 years old, ran through the golden fields just as he once had with his mother watching nearby. Elara watched him with a small, genuine smile, something that had taken a long time to return fully to her face. She had grown stronger over these 2 years, not just in body, but in spirit. She had become an advocate for other colonies affected by conflict, speaking regularly about the importance of remembrance, justice, and rebuilding after tragedy. Her mother's story, and the story of Meridian Colony, had become a symbol across human space of both terrible loss and eventual justice. As she watched her brother playing happily in the fields, a familiar figure approached from the direction of the newly built colony center. "Admiral Reyes," Elara said, surprised to see him. "I didn't know you were visiting New Meridian." "I try to visit every year around this time," Reyes said. His expression warmed despite his usually serious demeanor. "It's important to remember where we started, especially as we continue building humanity's future among the stars." They walked together through the fields for a while, discussing how the colony had grown, how survivors had slowly rebuilt their lives, and how the treaty with the Vroth Empire continued to hold strong, leading to unexpected but genuine diplomatic relations between the two former enemies. "Do you think it's truly over?" Elara asked finally. "The danger, I mean. Do you think we're safe now?" Admiral Reyes considered the question carefully before answering. "I think," he said, "that the galaxy learned an important lesson about humanity that day. We are not a species to be underestimated, but we are also not a species that seeks unnecessary conflict. As long as we remember both of those truths, I believe we will remain safe, and more importantly, we will remain who we truly are." He paused, watching Toby laugh as he chased a small creature through the wheat, so similar to how Elara herself had once played in these very fields with her mother. "The galaxy is vast, Elara, and there will always be new challenges, new threats we cannot yet imagine. But what happened here, what your mother's sacrifice helped inspire, that spirit of protecting the innocent while refusing to become monsters ourselves, that is something I believe humanity will carry forward no matter what comes next. That evening, as the twin suns began setting over New Meridian, painting the sky in the same beautiful orange and pink colors Alara remembered from years ago, she stood before the small memorial marker placed near her family's new home, bearing her mother's name and a simple inscription she had chosen herself. She ran toward danger to save others. Her courage became humanity's strength. Alara knelt beside the marker, placing a small bundle of wildflowers she had gathered from the fields. "We're safe now, Mom," she whispered quietly. "Everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows your name. And because of what happened here, other families won't have to lose what we lost." She stood slowly, watching Toby run toward her, his face bright with the innocent joy of childhood finally returning after years of hardship. "Alara! Alara, come play. The stars are coming out," Alara smiled, looking up at the darkening sky where countless stars were beginning to appear, no longer symbols of fear and destruction, but simply what they had always been meant to be. Distant lights, watching over a galaxy where humanity had finally found its place, not through conquest or fear, but through courage, patience, and an unbreakable promise to protect those who could not protect themselves. "Coming, Toby," she called, running to catch up with her brother beneath the vast star-filled sky. Far above them, in the depths of space, the treaty between humanity and the Vroth Empire held strong, a testament to justice properly delivered. News of humanity's strength, patience, and moral resolve continued spreading across the galaxy, reaching species who had never before considered humans worthy of respect. They had crossed humanity's red line, believing farmers and quiet colonies meant weakness. What followed was pure retribution, delivered not through endless destruction, but through 50 years of patient preparation, precise justice, and an unwavering commitment to protecting the innocent. And across the galaxy, every species watching learned the same important lesson that day. Humanity's patience should never be mistaken for humanity's weakness. The end.